I went back. I did. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Oh, if anybody out there is watching this, we just had a little catastrophe here.
Now we're
I, oh man. Oh no. I'm going to sit here you don't have to wait around for this if you don't want to, except wait around and say hello to people if they come on. I, what I was almost certain that I'd hit the go live.
minor
And
detail. Minor detail.
oh, it's not a minor detail. This is uh, let's see if we start getting people on. Um, if you've got time, maybe we could do an abbreviated one.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I think we can definitely do a recap of what we. So, for those who don't know, we have been talking about transit and home rule and all these things, but it looks like it was more of a private conversation between the two of us. So, happy to recap it and happy to go over some of that all over again.
yeah, let's wait a minute and see if anybody actually shows up to it, and then then if so, we'll start over. Or uh, or do a version of it. I'm
Yeah, so we've
uh,
got it says we got 4 viewers right now. So, hello everyone out there. Leave comments about questions about transportation. And Larry, I think let's start from the top.
okay. Well, I do want to explain it to folks what happened. I'm fairly new to the StreamYard software, and I thought I'd sent it live a few minutes ago. And evidently, I did not. So, me and Matt ran a whole show, and I was looking over at the comment section and not seeing anything. And then finally, about 5 minutes before the show was to the scheduled time was to end, I looked over and and started, breaking the third or fourth wall or whatever you call it, and saying, "Hey, if anybody's out there, would you post a comment?" And at that point, Matt checked, wasn't seeing anything on the Facebook page. So now here we are live, and I'm going to go through the whole introduction again.
All right, let's get rolling.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Cobb County Courier live stream, The Week in Cobb, a half hour late. I'm your host, Larry Felton Johnson, the editor and publisher of the Cobb County Courier. Our guest today is public transit advocate Matt Stigall, who's going to give a rundown of last week's Board of Commissioners work session and of the regular BOC meeting later in the day. I'm going to turn it over to Matt now, who's going to give a rundown on the Board of Commissioners work session, where the main topic was preparation for the upcoming 2024 SPLOST. SPLOST stands for Special Project Local Option Sales Tax, and it's a way of building transportation projects that can't be funded out of the general fund by adding an increment to the local sales tax. So I'm going to let you take it from here, Matt. You already had a practice session.
Yeah. Yeah, but I said it so perfectly before, so I'll see if I can say it so well this time. But yeah, so basically what happened last Tuesday was a work session that continued the previous conversations as far as trying to find a transportation solution for Cobb's future. And Cobb's Department of Transportation Director, Drew Ressler, did a presentation for the commissioners, which basically outlined a couple of things. One is Cobb County is growing. We expect to see about 300,000 new residents over the course of the next 20 to 30 years. And then we also expect to see 300,000 new people in the surrounding counties as well. And right now, all of those people basically drive a car. Over 95% of people drive a car to get around. And so what does a successful transportation system look like in the future when you have this growth and when you have everyone taking cars? And what can we do to try to give people a successful transportation solution? And up to now, it's been a lot of building roads. But looking at the future, they're looking at investing in transit, bike lanes, pedestrian, microtransit, things like shuttles, things like that, and try to do a transportation solution that makes sense for the entire county. And to do that, they want to try to satisfy three goals. Number one is mobility between activity centers. They define activity centers as kind of downtown areas. So think of it as like downtown Kennesaw, downtown Ackworth, downtown Marietta, Smyrna, all of those type of areas, but also Six Flags, Cumberland, Town Center Mall, the Cobb County Airport, areas like that. They're just destinations for everyone. So having a transportation solution that provides the mobility between those activity centers, providing transportation within those activity centers, that's where you see a lot of the bicycle and pedestrian solutions come in. And then finally, serving the community. And the way that Drew presented it was very interesting in that one thing that's not talked about a lot is transportation for senior citizens. And we expect to see a tripling of the senior citizen population over during the future. And giving that group access and transportation options to basically where they don't have to move and they continue to access everywhere they need to go, well, without needing a car as they age to the point where it becomes difficult to drive. So kind of laying out that framework didn't really, it was intentional that they didn't really show a lot about the solutions, but really just restated the need. And then the next step is the commissioners authorizing the process to progress towards a referendum, which would likely follow the HB 930 transit tax. And so that's kind of what you're seeing things kind of drift towards to and kind of move towards to. And so over the course of the next few weeks, we hope to see the commissioners come to a vote to authorize the county to progress towards that referendum in 2024.
I know that before the notion was that the referendum would happen earlier. And so there was a whole long community input process that went on. Is that going to, is your sense that that's going to be what will happen again, that that in preparation for 2024, there'll be like public meetings, public hearings, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the public will be involved in some way. You've got different stakeholders. I think what's going to be very important is that current transit riders are involved, as well as people who would want to take transit. And what's important, the actual users. Far too often we let business interests and people like that get involved, and sometimes decisions are made that aren't really best for the community. And so that's where I think going in the community here, and then also people who don't want transit to begin with, wind up shaping a lot of these things by either sitting there and saying like, hey, we don't want MARTA because of local control, when those people would vote against transit anyways. So figuring out what is a solution that serves the community and actually gets people to use it, I think is going to be very important.
I know you've spent a lot of time thinking and being involved in what good transit would look like, what usable transit that would actually pick up ridership and be quality and popular. Could you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a very important question to ask, because far too often we sit there and we say, hey, we're going to raise this money. How do we spend this money? And I think the question needs to be asked, take the money requirements off the table. What is the right solution? And the right solution is something that basically allows us to go somewhere locally. And that's where something microtransit, good bus service, those things come together really well. But then also regionally as well. And and what I see in a lot of the plans is we don't look at the regional needs. But if we look at the data, we see that over 60% of people who live in the county work outside the county, and vice versa. Those people who work in the county live outside of the county. It's one of those things where whatever the solution that comes forward, there needs to be high capacity regional transportation options for us to be able to have a successful transit system.
Well, I'm trying to think of some of the questions that I asked earlier when when we did our accidental practice session. I live in the middle of a transit desert, and to me, it's an area that could support a well-run transit system. If if it's done the way you're talking about, where you have a bus come by every 45 minutes, and obviously it's not going to work out. Was there any discussion of how to get better coverage across the county?
So coverage is one of the key things, and they're based on, again, using the framework of what we saw being proposed out of the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. That framework and that proposal would provide fixed route transit to over 70% of the county. But coverage isn't the only thing that works. I mean, if we could do bus routes throughout the entire county, but if they're only showing up every hour or something, like that's not a solution that many people want to use. So you need the coverage, you need the frequency, you need the reliability. They need to show up on time. They need to be fast. They can't just be stuck in transit all the time or traffic all the time. And then they also need to be convenient. I've taken transit recently a few times, and there's some difficulties with just, right now, like the buses don't take credit or debit cards. It's cash only or Breeze card only. But if you want to reload your money on the Breeze card, it takes over 24 hours for your Breeze card to update. So there's already these barriers to being able, for people who want to take transit. There's already these barriers just to make it difficult. And we've got to have a solution that is competitive with driving for people to actually start choosing to take it instead. And then by doing that, and this is something that's not usually mentioned, the more we get people to choose to take transit, it takes cars off the road and benefits even the people who don't take transit. So my motto is always better transit benefits everyone, whether you take it or not. And I think that that's just an important point to always make, is that, if we get more and more cars off the road, if we increase the transit usage from currently it's between 1% to 2% to, let's say, it's 10% of people taking transit, those cars off the road would do a much better job at relieving congestion than adding lanes anywhere.
One thing, and this, I'm 71 years old, so my memory's not always fantastic, but I remember a few meetings, BOC meetings ago, and this is a little out of the scope of the big plan and the SPLOST, but there was discussion of bidding out the contractor who's handling Cobb Link, of finding a new contractor to deal with that. What's the status of that? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, so it did go to a RFP earlier a couple months ago. I don't know what companies have put into it. There was just a merge or a buyout of the two largest transit operators in the country. I think it was like Metro Transit just bought out First Transit, or basically two of the largest companies just merged. So there's less competition on that front now as well. So we'll see what offers come in as far as that. But we are going to a new contract or a new agreement on that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the regular BOC meeting and the issue of the lawsuit that Cobb County's bringing under the Home Rule Act. You want to take it? You want to take that and run with it?
Yeah. So last Tuesday evening, the regular Board of Commissioners meeting, the transit talk was during the work session, but during the regular Board of Commissioners meeting, it was probably one of the more electric atmospheres of any of the meetings I've been to. It was definitely the temperature in the room was raised. It was packed. I mean, you had people on both sides of the aisle. When I say both sides, the main topic of conversation was about the home rule and basically the redistricting of Jerica Richardson out of her district by the new commissioner maps drawn up by the state legislators. So, they went through the political process, and every 10 years, as everyone knows, things get redistricted. There's gerrymandering left and right. There's this whole political process. Whoever is in power basically is able to draw the maps, but never have you seen an elected official. I mean, people elected Jerica Richardson for a 4-year term back in 2020. You have never seen somebody lose their office because basically they got drawn out of their district. And that's what happened in Jerica. So the county vote, the topic in front of the county was whether the county should pursue legal options, which would be using the home rule clause to try to challenge those maps and put in a new map drawn by the local commissioners. And the result of that vote was 3-2 for us to pursue that. So it was split along, party lines, political lines, and that was the result. But it was definitely a very heated room, all the way from the public comments to the people in the crowd. There was cheers, there was boos, there was talking back and forth. And then even the commissioners, were very passionate in their arguments.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, one discussion was the comment that a lot of people made that Jerica should just move in order to in order to continue serving in her seat. She should uproot herself and move somewhere else.
Yeah, Chairwoman Cupid said it. There was a lot of victim blaming in this. So, Jerica had no part in drawing the map to draw her out of the district. I guarantee you, if you ask her, she did not want to be in this situation where she possibly loses her seat in a couple of months. And yet some people are standing up there saying, oh, she could just fix this all by just moving. Or, she shouldn't be putting the county through this. A lot of victim blaming, a lot of pointing the finger and questioning her integrity when she had no part in her being drawn out of these districts. And so, and I just question that. And Commissioner Sheffield said that whenever you say that somebody should just move, you go back to some of those comments of you don't belong here. And, when Commissioner Sheffield said that, you realize kind of the historic atmosphere, the historic, what we're seeing was kind of, I don't know. I think that it will be talked about either in legal circles or, in different circles decades from now, what we're seeing here in the county. Because, it's a continuation of a party in power using their, and it's frustrating because it's the legislator, so it's you've got legislators from Hartwell, Georgia, and Valdosta, Georgia, and Blue Ridge, Georgia, and all over the state. And they're saying that they've got the power to basically draw one of our commissioners out of our district that was voted on by over 50,000 people. And, so anyone, and a lot of the justification of some arguments, you just have this feeling that's because of the letter next to Jerica's name, and so it's kind of a means to an end because people are arguing against voters who to vote for. It's people that claim local control and conservatism would sit there and and argue for this to happen, because if you remove the letters next to whatever the politician's name is, this sets a precedent to where in the future whatever ruling party exists can sit there and draw any commissioner, any elected official outside of their district. And it just that's a scary precedent to set in any democracy, no matter who's in power. So it'll be interesting what happens in the courts.
You came back to us, but you went all Max Headroom for a few minutes. It was I kind of in terms of cable TV when it first came out, I sort of grew up with Max Headroom, and your face was doing that kind of thing for a minute.
Oh no,
that's the reason I suddenly broke down into grins. I could still hear you.
Okay.
But, yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of what other aspects. I know you're best known for transportation issues, and so I am racking my brain trying to figure out something that might.
You asked about the bike highways earlier.
Yeah. It was the article I saw. I don't know where it was, just being passed around on Twitter or some other social media, of a series of grade separated bike lanes. They were totally blocked off from traffic. They were raised above the highway, and they had solar panels over the top of them. And it was in South Korea. And so give me your feedback on that kind of contraption.
Yeah, and you see bike lanes being built along highways as kind of a solution because it's just easier to get right-of-way acquisition sometimes along that. But really, We need to build bike lanes and bike infrastructure more on a local basis right now. Like within our downtown areas. Like imagine people who live next to the Marietta Square, being able to bike to the square safely. What that would do to the community, or any of the other downtown areas, Smyrna, Kennesaw, any of those. Biking, when you start doing longer distances, I mean, as we get more and more e-bikes, it becomes more possible. But I still think biking, the more focus on the mobility within activity centers, that's more where I think the bike dollars should go to instead of the between activity centers. But Cobb actually has a pretty good trail system. As far as in the proposal, we currently have a decent trail system: Mountain to River Trail, Silver Comet Trail, Noonday Trail. You've got some along the river already now. And in the proposals, and if you actually look at the trails plan that was done a couple of years ago, there's 6 or 7 priority trails. Connect the Comet being one of them, the Noonday extension, all of that. And if you see like a map of all of that built up, you start seeing like, okay, that's a decent trail network. Austell, Powder Springs, currently they're in the process to check out the feasibility of doing a bike trail between downtown Powder Springs and downtown Austell. And that to me would be wonderful for the mobility between those two towns. And being able to provide that level of access to people. So, I think we're starting. There was a dearth of about 20 or 30 years where we didn't look at bike lanes. We just did car, everything cars. And I think we are now catching up, and with the new federal dollars coming from the new Infrastructure Act, you're starting to see incentives for Cobb County and the cities to start thinking about mobility more than just the car. And I think that benefits all of us in the long run.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing I'm chomping at the bit over is that there are three projects that sort of surround me that will it'll be wonderful when they're finished. I hope they do it before I die. There's the
what are those projects?
The Chattahoochee River Trail.
Oh yeah, love it.
It runs within 300 yards of me.
Yep.
And it runs along it runs past Riverview Landing, the big mixed use development.
Well, the whole plan is for it to be 100 miles all the way from Buford Dam all the way down to I forget what town. I mean, it's supposed to be a 100-mile trail along the river that would be transformed.
Yeah, the Riverlands project, whatever it's called. It's the thing that Trust for Public Lands is involved in. Well, the Chattahoochee River Trail is part of that. And then you've got the Proctor Creek Trail system on the other side of the river.
Yep.
So they run in parallel, and there'll be a bridge across that hooks to the mouth of, it'll go roughly from Riverview Landing area, really just a little north of it, over to Proctor Creek.
Yep.
Then there's the Mableton Parkway Trail, which links to the Chattahoochee River Trail. And it'll be a convoluted thing, but I'd be able to get on the Chattahoochee River Trail, go down to the Mableton Parkway Trail, and connect to the Silver Comet Trail from the south, which would be a roundabout way, but it would be a scenic roundabout way. And then there's the extension of the Silver Comet Trail to Plant Atkinson Road.
Well, there's actually a trail that's by your house too that I think is even closer. There's a trail planned along Nickajack Creek that's considered a priority trail. That would, I believe, it would be right near your area.
Yeah, it'd have to be if it's Nickajack Creek.
Yeah. So they're planning to connect the river, I think where the shoepades are down there, and have a trail kind of follow Nickajack Creek to, I don't know if it's all the way up to the Silver Comet, but it's considered, I mean, it's a trail that should connect, a lot of that area.
Yeah, I'll check that out. I think I saw the name Nickajack Park Trail, but I didn't, Nickajack Creek Trail, but I didn't really focus on it. I'm trying to think of where it could run. It could run to Heritage Park, which would, Heritage Park in Mableton, and that would be a logical place for it to connect. It would, but then you could get to the Silver. If one of you to carry your back, you could get to the Silver Comet Trail by just walking from the Heritage Park Trail up the hill to the Silver Comet Trail.
So let's see. I'm looking at the description. I've done some research on this trail. So if I look, let's see. The Nickajack Creek Trail is a 3-mile greenway proposed in South Cobb, near South Cobb Drive and Nickajack Creek, and will connect the trail infrastructure along the river. No funding is allocated to it yet. But if I look at the northern limit of it, let's see, it's that. So it basically would connect, I guess there's an existing trail currently coming down from the Silver Comet. I don't know if that's Floyd Road or what road that is, but there is a road that comes down, a trail that currently comes down from the Silver Comet. So this would actually connect the Silver Comet down to the river.
Well, that's the trail the trail I know of that comes off the Silver Comet Trail near Nickajack Creek is the Heritage Park Trail. It's not a mixed use, a multi-use trail. It's mostly walking because it has no pavement. But it connects at the bridge over the East-West Connector. But if it's just 3 miles and it runs from the river, it must run to Nickajack Park, because that's the only thing I could think of that would be about 3 miles.
Yeah, so it's there's the river trail. So I'm looking at the map, like a map that I've created. It's on my Better Cobb newsletter that I do every week. I have an entire issue that's all about the bike trails. And so I've mapped that out. And then I also, go through each of the 6 priority trails that came out of that. And yeah, I mean, I think, no, that's nowhere near a completed trail network. But it does get us going, and it does, you got the Rottenwood Creek Trail in that. You've got a trail up in West Cobb that goes from Allatoona Creek. So there's a lot of options there that I think would be great for the community if we can see it be completed.
Yeah, the trail network here is potentially affects the area more positively than anything planned for public transit I've seen for this area, which is basically nothing at the moment.
So do you want to offer, if there's anyone who's watching, if they have comments or questions, I think I'm open to answer any questions or anything about the, the transit progress with transit in the county, or even what happened last week with the home rule.
Yeah. The only question I've seen so far are aliens real in Cobb County? And I think that's a little outside our scope here. You'll have to ask that elsewhere. Maybe call Ross Cavett. He'll love me.
Yes.
But I agree with Matt. If anybody has any questions, I know that we've had people do likes to this, so I know some people at least are watching or have been watching. So anybody who wants to just say hi. Can I get a hi? Evidently everybody's shy.
Yes. I'd see on Facebook there's currently 3 viewers. So
yeah.
We're out there. We're live to the internet. There we go.
There's Janet Rao. Hi Janet. Hi Bernadette. I'm sorry we accidentally started a half hour late. Me and Matt did a whole show here, and I'm just learning the Streamware software that does the streaming to Facebook and YouTube. And I failed to do something that sent it live. And we noticed that about 5 minutes before the end of the show. So we did the whole thing. We did a do-over. We did the whole show over. But hello, y'all, and thanks for chiming in.
Hopefully you learned something about transit and transportation and, and what all happened last week. And yeah, I enjoyed it.
Me too. When we finally went on the when we finally went live.
Hey, I enjoyed our conversation, even when it was just you and me, and we said everything so eloquently and perfectly in that private session, right?
We did. The second one we did that y'all heard was kind of sloppy and stuff. You're welcome, Janet. And Bernie, we got to get together on a Zoom session too. It's we haven't talked in a long time. That's my daughter. Well, I'm going to declare. Yeah. Unless y'all have some specific questions, we've done about an hour of show, about a half hour of which was visible to the public. So I'm thinking we're going to call it a day. Next week, I know what to look for to make sure that it's live. Is it turns red here in the upper. I got to tell a story involving former Governor Roy Barnes. At I don't know if it was a Mableton Day Festival or what, but I, on impulse, decided to try an Instagram Live recording of a parade through Mableton. It started at the shopping center with the Publix in it on Floyd Road, and then walked down to the Mableton Arts Center, the Mabel House Arts Center. So it went great. You know, I had 40 or 50 people show up right away because Instagram Live will pick up users right away. So I get down to the, back to the Mabel House, and Roy Barnes is sitting in a car there. And we typically run into each other and tell old guy jokes. We talk about hair loss and gray hair and forgetfulness and all that. So I put the camera on him, and we did this banter back and forth for about 5-10 minutes maybe. And I realized I had not hit the go live button, sort of like this. So that's kind of my bane.
Hey, you're comparing me to Roy Barnes here, and I'll take that as a compliment. So,
Right, yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to close it down, y'all. And I'm going to do it with a brief slideshow.
And just real quick, if you want to follow or join Cobb for Transit, it's cobbfortransit.org. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of the above. And then I also run a weekly newsletter, A Better Cobb, where I've also highlighted, Larry, your accidentally car-free articles and all of that. But basically, transit, bike lanes, sustainability, all of those things to try to make Cobb County better. And so that's a better stack of you actually.
You're kind of breaking up, but I'm going to wait for you to come back so I can put the URL. Do you want to stick it in the comments, Matt?
Yeah, I can do that. Yep. I'll do that right now. Thank you.
Here's my production assistant while he's doing that.
Oh, look.
He bit my ankle. He's ready to be fed.
All right. I just sent in the comments. So you should be able to see the websites there in the comments. And if you subscribe to that newsletter, I send it out weekly just about what's happening with the county, transit, transportation, sustainability, all of that. Okay.
Well, tune in next week when we'll really start at 8 p.m. And Mr. Kitty wants to wish y'all all a great week.
All right, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you for having me, Larry.